Welcome to Greater Good Radio Hawaii, where we develop tomorrow's leaders by bringing you up close and personal with today's top business people. Greater Good Radio Hawaii is dedicated to social entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Evan Leong, and with me is my co-host, Carrie Leong.
Mahalo, Evan. Today's guest is U.S. Congressman Ed Case. Congressman Case is currently running for the United States Senate seat in the next election. Please welcome to Greater Good Radio U.S. Congressman Ed Case. Welcome to our show, Congressman.
Oh, aloha. Good to be with you both.
So what does a congressman do?
Well, the only specific constitutional obligation of a congressman is to vote on behalf of all of the citizens that he or she represents in our U.S. Congress. Under our system of government, we've got the executive, legislative, and judicial branch. And if we're doing it right, as our founding fathers envisioned, we have a good system of checks and balances going. The legislative branch is the branch of the people. The legislative branch is where the people elect their representatives. I represent 650,000 people directly. I'm the only representative that 650,000 U.S. citizens have in the U.S. House of Representatives. Indirectly, I represent the other 650,000 in Hawaii because we being Representative Abercrombie and I, who are the two members of Congress in the House from Hawaii today, really function as at-large representatives. We really represent the whole state. So my job, simply put, is to make decisions in our federal government on behalf not only of those 650,000 constituents, but on behalf of the entire country. Now, where does that break out really as a practical matter? I really think I have three levels of job, really. The number one is to debate and decide and vote on the great issues of our day, where our country is going to go. How do we tax? How do we spend? What is our foreign policy? How do we take care of people? How do we protect our environment? How do we preserve Social Security? Any number of issues that affect us all as citizens of our United States. The second area that I work a great deal on that's vital for a small state like Hawaii, especially one that's 5,000 miles away from D.C., is to make sure that our federal government is working for us here. Some of that is just making sure that the federal monies are being spent appropriately in Hawaii in the right programs and at the right amounts, and really to advocate for Hawaii and Washington. A lot of it is just making sure that the federal government understands Hawaii because, we got two different cultures happening. We got the culture of Hawaii and the culture of D.C. And whoever the member of Congress is, that person has to understand both cultures, be able to walk in both cultures, and as I say a lot of times, be the cultural translator between those cultures. So a lot of my time is spent on making sure that the feds back in D.C. understand that, hey, man, because you have ethnic diversity in Hawaii or because you have a higher percentage than anywhere else in the country of English as a second language, people in public education, that you've got to apply it a little bit differently. So that's kind of federal stuff.
How exactly do you get these people to listen? I mean, do you meet with them? Is it voting? You network? What actually happens in that?
Well, clearly, in terms of the voting side of it, I am part of the great debate, the great discussion, the great consideration of what we should be doing in our federal government. And that part of my job is done on a couple of levels. The first and foremost, and I think most important part of my job, is staying in touch with my constituents. Because I'm supposed to be trying to understand and represent and advocate for a viewpoint of my constituent, which sounds easy, but since nobody thinks exactly alike, you've got to try to form some informed decision. That's a lot of talk stories here in Hawaii. I've done 130 over the last 3 years.
You meet with people individually, or is it small groups, groups?
I meet with, first of all, I meet with anybody that wants to meet with me. Anybody that wants to meet with me can call my office and come and meet with me personally. Sometimes the schedule has to be worked out, but I've never turned anybody away that wanted to talk to me in my office. Other than that, it's me outreaching into my community. When I go out to Lanai, I hold a talk story and a 1-hour community meeting, non-censored, non-moderated. It's just me standing up in front of a room, saying what's going on, asking questions, answering questions, having a discussion. The other side of it is back in D.C., talking with my colleagues, going through committee hearings, and trying to ask the questions that I need to ask, debating on the floor of the U.S. House, and ultimately taking out my voting card and sticking it in the voting slot and voting on the great issues of our day. I mean, that's the first part of my job.
So about voting, because you're representing the people, and you're talking story, like you said, to a lot of the local people. Have you ever voted with what you wanted as opposed to representing the people?
Well, that's a very hard question to answer because there's really no easy way to call that a black and white response. There's just so many shades of gray that go on. Most of the time, obviously, if I am not representing a majority of the people that I represent, sooner or later they're going to come to the conclusion that I don't represent them very well, and then I should be turned out of office. But having said that, I've voted now 1,800 times in the last 3 years, and there have been votes where probably if I went out and asked people out in my community, do you agree with my vote? Maybe the answer would be no. But in that case, what I'm doing is exerting what I think is my responsibility to provide my best judgment, given the information that's available to me. There's a very famous saying by a British statesman that basically goes like this. You owe to your constituents not only the representation of them, you owe them your judgment. And I've always subscribed to that. Now, there's no easy way to reduce that into any clear-cut rules in any specific vote. But on balance, obviously, you need to be doing the job for your constituents. It's up to them to decide whether you are.